Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the recess meeting of the Will County Board for March 17th, 2011. We will call this meeting to order. If everyone would please stand. County Board Member Deb Rozak will lead us in the pledge this morning and then introduce our clergy for this morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our invocation today will be given by Reverend Matthew Robinson. He is from Westminster Presbyterian Church in Joliet.
I want to thank you for this privilege and ask us to come to God in prayer together. O good and gracious God, you created all people in your image, and we thank you for the astonishing variety you give us in this world. Lord, enrich our lives by ever-widening circles of friendship and show us your presence in those who differ from us until our knowledge of your love is made perfect in our love for all your children. This morning, Lord, especially we hold in prayer those affected by the earthquakes, tsunamis, nuclear plants imploding in Japan. Let us remember them in silent prayer now. O high and holy God, you rule the ways of peoples and govern every earthly government. Bring peace and goodwill among all people. Give all in authority the wisdom and strength to know your will and to do it. Help them remember that they are called to serve the people as lovers of truth and justice. Almighty God, bless those who hold office in the government of Will County, that they may do their work in a spirit of wisdom, kindness, and justice. Help them use their authority to serve faithfully and to promote the general welfare. Renew the ties of mutual regard that form our civic life, and send us honest and able leaders. Help us to eliminate poverty, prejudice, and oppression, that your peace may prevail with righteousness and justice, with order, and that men and women from various cultures and with differing talents may find with one another the fulfillment of their humanity. All of this, Lord, we pray in your holy name. And let all God's people say, Amen.
Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Sure. Bellotta. Adamick. Here. Deutsch. Here. Howard. Here. Singer. Here. Lori Smith. Here. Weigel. Here. Drayle. Here. Hart. Here. McPhillips. Here. Costa. Here. Mayer. Here. Trainier. Here. Argadelis. Yes. Goodson. Here. Brian Smith. Here. Gould. Here. May. Here. Rozak. Here. Konecki. Here. Seiler. Here. Brooks. Here. Stewart. Here. Winfrey. Here. Babich. Here. Wilhelmy. And Eustis. Here. Thank you.
25 members present, 2 absent.
25 members present. We do have a quorum. Entertain a motion to place on file the certificate of publication. Mr. Babbage makes a motion, second by Ms. Trainier. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Bellotta. Adamick. Deutsch. Yes. Howard. Yes. Singer. Yes. Lori Smith. Yes. Weigel. Yes. Drayle. Yes. Hart. Yes. McPhillips. Yes. Costa. Mayor? Trainier?
Ms. Trainier, you here?
Thank you. Argid Goodson? Brian Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Seiler? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmy? And Mustis.
Mr.
And
Bellata.
Bellotta. Thank you.
27 affirmative.
27 affirmative, motion is carried. Entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of our February 17th, 2011 meeting. Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Madam Clerk, would you please acknowledge our elected officials and media? Acknowledge our elected officials and media that is present this morning.
Sure. Our auditor, Duffy Blackburn, Circuit Clerk Pam McGuire, County Clerk Nancy Schultz Boots, our County Executive Larry Walsh, Recorder of Deeds Karen A. Stuckel, our Sheriff Paul A. Kopis, State's Attorney James Glasgow, and our Treasurer Steve Weber. Media, we have Cindy Kane from the Herald News, Michael Clear from Farmers Weekly Review, and Alice Fabry from Chicago Tribune.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Citizens to be heard. If we do have any citizens to be heard, they will be acknowledged at the appropriate time. We move on to honorary resolutions and proclamations. If County Board Member Joe Babbage would please come forward, and a proclamation and recognition of our good friends at Cantigny Post 367.
Thank you, County Executive. At time, Ted Parks, past commander at the VFW Cantigny, would you come to the podium, please? Thank you. Come on over here. Okay, we're going to recognize the VFW with this proclamation. Cantigny Post is located off of Black Road on Horseshoe Drive. I don't know if we're the oldest post in Will County, but I think we are one of the oldest. I could ask the sheriff if we are oldest. No, you don't know. Okay, whatever. Whereas the Veterans of Foreign Wars VFW was established in 1913. Consolidating three organizations created by Spanish-American War veterans. By 1915, membership grew to 5,000. By 1936, membership was almost 200,000. Whereas, since then, the VFW's voice has been instrumental in establishing the Veterans Administration, creating a GI Bill for the 20th century, the development of the National Cemetery system, and the fight for compensation for Vietnam vets exposed to Agent Orange and for veterans diagnosed with Gulf War syndrome. Whereas, Cantigny Post 367 was founded on March the 28th, 1920, and whereas the name was chosen by the veterans who organized the post and who had served with the 1st Division and saw action at the Cantigny Woods. And whereas the mission of Cantigny Post 367 VFW is to foster camaraderie among the U.S. veterans of overseas conflicts, to serve the veterans, the military, and the communities, to advocate on behalf of all veterans. And whereas Cantigny Post 367 ensures that veterans are respected for their service, also always receive their earned entitlement, and are recognized for their sacrifice they and their loved ones have made on behalf of our country. Now therefore it be proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive congratulate Cantigny Post 367 on their 91st anniversary. Be it proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive recognize Cantigny Post VFW and express their appreciation for the contributions made to the citizens of Will County. Dated the 17th day of March 2011. Larry Walsh, Will County Executive, Nancy Schultz Boots, Will County Clerk, and I so move.
Moved, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried. Mr. Parks, congratulations.
Hello, thanks a lot. I'd like to, on behalf of the officers and members of Post 367, we'd like to thank the County Board and support that we've always been given by the people of Will County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Past Presidents Mary Mahalich and Joan Eklund, would you please come down? You know, they say behind every good man there's a better woman. Here they come. And I don't want you advertising your spaghetti dinner, Mary. These two young ladies are our past presidents of our auxiliary, and I want to recognize them for the outstanding work they have done. Now, recognizing the 90th anniversary of Ladies Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Cantigny Auxiliary 367. Whereas the members of the Lady Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars live by the motto, honor the dead by helping the living. And whereas the Ladies Auxiliary, VFW, serve the veterans of this country and our communities as a testament to the sacrifice and commitment of every man and woman who has served in uniform. And whereas the Cantigny VFW Ladies Auxiliary was established in 1921, and whereas the Cantigny VFW Ladies Auxiliary is one of the oldest auxiliary in the organization, having laid the foundation for programs that are conducted and services that are provided to our nation. And whereas membership in the Lady Auxiliary has been broadened to include not only wives of VFW members, but also their mothers, widows, sisters, half-sisters, daughters, grandmothers, and granddaughters. And whereas, while continuing to support the VFW, the Ladies Auxiliaries perform many community services, fund cancer research, fight drug abuse and illiteracy, advocate for the rights of the elder, and support the VFW National Home, Special Olympics, and other worthy causes. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive hereby recognize the VFW Ladies Cantigny on their 90th anniversary. Be it further proclaimed that the Will County Board and Will County Executive extend their appreciation for the Ladies Auxiliary ongoing commitment to the veterans of our county, dated this 17th day of March, 2011. Larry Walsh, County Executive, Nancy Schultz-Voots, County Clerk, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Congratulations, Mary.
Yes, I'd like to say always. Executive Walsh and all the county board members, we want to thank you for this proclamation. The ladies have always worked hard, and they always work with the men at the posts. We are always helping them. They are helping us, and we want to thank you very much for the proclamation.
Thank you. Board wants to know about your spaghetti.
The 30th. Yeah, the 30th.
What time? What time, Mary?
We got corned beef.
What time?
4 to 7.
4 to 7 on the 30th. Wednesday is Wednesday the 30th.
We got a good chef that does excellent.
Corned beef today, so.
She's the chef.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We won't charge anything for that plug. Next, County Board Member Andrea will come forward and present a proclamation declaring April 7th, 2011 as Will County Save Our Kids Day. Ann?
We have with us today Mr. Glasgow, and also I'd like to have Joanne Lay and Pete McClanahan step forward for this proclamation. This proclamation originally came out of the Juvenile Justice Council for Will County, of which Mr. Glasgow chairs and I am a member. Focus in the last year has been on the heroin epidemic. Good morning. Proclamation recognizing April 7, 2011 as the Will County Save Our Kids Day. Whereas the 7th day of April 2011 is recognized as Will County Save Our Kids Day and supported by the Office of Will County State's Attorney Jim Glasgow and the Will County Juvenile Justice Council, which is composed of representatives from schools, law enforcement, and youth service providers. And whereas drugs and alcohol are readily available to young people in Will County, and they are bombarded with messages that seek to normalize adolescent drug use. And whereas young people who begin regular use of alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana are more likely to use other dangerous drugs in the future. And whereas Will County's only inpatient treatment center reports more than 1,200 requests for treatment in the last 8 months, and of those requests, more than 300 indicated that heroin was a primary and secondary addiction. And whereas, tragically, there were 26 heroin-related overdose deaths in 2010 in Will County, of which 38% involved citizens between the ages of 17 and 30. And whereas prevention research shows that drug education is most effective when it is provided through a student's academic career through student-led groups and strategies that seek to change the incorrect perception that drug use is normal adolescent behavior. And whereas parents are most effective when they provide a loving home environment that is free of drug abuse and that offers support strategies to discourage the use of illegal narcotics. And whereas local government and community stakeholders do have the important impact by supporting parents and schools in implementing effective education programs that change incorrect perceptions about drug use and by supporting policies that reduce reduce access to alcohol and drugs by young people. And whereas all community sectors can work together to ensure that our young people learn to make choices that support a life free of drug use. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive do hereby recognize April 7th, 2011 as Will County Save Our Kids Day and call upon each other and all citizens to play an active role in the lives of our young people by supporting effective education programs and proven prevention strategies to end senseless drug-related injuries, addictions, and death, thereby restoring the possibility of a bright future for all young people in Will County. Dated the 17th day of March 2011, tested by Nancy Voots and Will County Executive Larry Walsh, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Trail, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
I'm under orders to be very brief, but I got to acknowledge Pete McClanahan and Joni Lee. Pete's with Stepping Stones, Joni's with Chestnut. These are the people that are in the trenches. And, as normal people in society, we don't understand the difference between cocaine and marijuana and amphetamines. And heroin is death. Any one of us, if someone were to involuntarily inject us with it, we'd be hooked. It instantaneously takes over your mind, your body, and your soul. And when you get the next dose, you don't care if you die. That's why so many people do, because they don't check the purity, and they can't check the purity. They don't know if it's laced with fentanyl, which will kill you. So it is. There's a march on the 30th of April, Be a Hero, and in this brochure are a couple young children that look like your neighbors that overdosed on heroin. We just lost a child from our juvenile drug court to an overdose of heroin within the last week. In our court system, we got him in our hands. We're providing him with everything he needs, and the demon killed him. So this is something that we really need to go to war with and protect our children and redouble our efforts to make sure that they have everything they need to avoid heroin. Thanks.
And again, just please, look on your desks. Look at the brochure for the march. HERO, the Heroin Epidemic Relief Organization. It's in Homer Glen. Certainly is a worthwhile endeavor if you have time to march and participate. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, all right, thank you. Thank you for your time today. We are very grateful that you're willing to look at this issue. I wanted to add that heroin is now in powder form. It doesn't smell. It can be hidden and taken to school, and this is what the schools are seeing, is kids can take it. It's one drug they can take at school, not be caught for. And what we find are the people who are pushing marijuana are saying, if you like that high, you may like this one, it's better. So this problem is exploding very quickly, and we greatly are deeply grateful to you for your support. Thank you.
That's terrible.
Chair recognizes County Board Member Don Gould.
Everybody, thank you, Mr. Executive. I have a proclamation recognizing May 11th, 2011 as Healthcare Worker Appreciation Day. Whereas healthcare organizations of the Chicago area, including Will County, are both dedicated and committed to providing quality care for their communities. And whereas all members of the healthcare team, nurses, allied health professionals, support staff, financial service personnel, administration, physicians, and volunteers are recognized as a vital component to providing the very best health care available. And whereas these individuals' contributions not only enhance but reinforce the well-being of communities throughout Will County. And whereas the more than 150 hospitals and healthcare organizations that Metropolitan Chicago Healthcare Council members wish to pay homage to healthcare workers for their unwavering commitment and contributions at work and their communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive do hereby designate May 11th, 2011 as Healthcare Worker Appreciation Day in Will County. Be it further resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive encourage all residents to recognize the many contributions of healthcare workers. Signed by County Executive Lawrence Walsh and attested by County Clerk Nancy Voots. And I so move.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Gould. All resolutions from the February 17, 2011 County Board agenda have been signed by the County Executive. Moving on to new business, our first committee this morning is the Land Use and Development Committee. Mr. Weigel, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Tom.
I'd like to open a public hearing for land use cases, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. McPhillips. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Sure. Bellotta? Adamick? Deutsch? Howard? Singer? Lori Smith? Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Costa? Mayor? Trainier? Argadelis? Goodson? Brian Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Seiler? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmy? and Mustis. Thank you.
27 affirmative.
27 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Please be advised that absolutely no new evidence or information will be allowed once the land use public hearing is closed. Today we have cases, 4 cases. First case is 5942-MV, 5960-V2, 5961-SV, 5962-V2. Is there anyone here from the general public interested in any of these cases? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on either of these 4 cases? Anyone interested in speaking on any of these zoning cases? Mr. Weigel.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Costa. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Bellotta? Adamick? Deutsch? Howard? Singer? Lori Smith? Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Costa? Mayor? Trainier? Argadelis? Goodson? Brian Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Seiler? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmy? And Mustis. Thank you.
27 affirmative.
27 affirmative. We are out of public hearing. Mr. Weigel, please continue.
Our first case, 5942-MV, is a zoning map amendment from E1 to E2, approximately 5-acre parcel in Green Garden Township. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Smith. Any discussion? Any discussion on this case? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. Any, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case is 5960-V2. This is a variance from accessory storage from 1,500 square feet to 2,100 square feet, and for a variance for accessory height from 15 to 21 feet. This is in Joliet Township. I'd make a motion for approval for the accessory storage from 1,500 to 2,100 square feet. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Trenier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Also, a motion for variance from the height from 15 to 21 feet. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Seiler, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case, 5961 SB from the Forest Preserve District of Will County. They're asking for a special use permit for floodplain development with one condition in DuPage Township. This is a 183-acre parcel adjacent to I-355. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. May, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
For the same case, make a motion for approval for a variance from the Stream and Wetland Protection Ordinance. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Costa. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case, 5962-V2. This is requesting a approval of the variance for the maximum height for a small wind generating system from 80 feet to 155 feet. This is on a 23-acre parcel in Crete Township. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Singer. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Mr. Adamick. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
That concludes the zoning cases. There are 5 resolutions. First resolution, 11-86, resolution for temporary use permit for the Naperville Polo Club to allow for ultimate Frisbee tournament. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Trenier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution is 11-87, an ordinance amending the Will County subdivision ordinance for foreclosure procedures. This just clarifies our existing procedures and makes it more easy to understand for our residents. And committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. McPhillips. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution, 11-88, for the extension of a effective period for the special use permit and variance for case 5840 VSB. This is something we've extended in the past in an industrial park near Shanahan. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Babish, second by Mr. Howard. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next resolution, 11-89, an ordinance amending Section 6, 8, and 16 of the Will County zoning ordinance concerning construction and demolition debris recycling facilities. These are new regulations, something that we haven't had in the past. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Rainier, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case, 11-90, a resolution for temporary use permit for Prairie Materials as agent in the Port of Will County to allow a temporary portable central mix concrete plant. This is in an industrial park where they are constructing these large industrial buildings. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
That concludes my reports.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weigel. Yes, sir, Mr. Mustis.
Before we leave land use, Tom, you asked about having a committee of the whole to review the sign ordinance specifically for digital signs. I'm mentioning it now because that's what you'd like to do, correct?
Yes. Oh, sorry, Tom.
Yes, I think we should have that, and it was recommended that we have it after the Forest Preserve meeting next month. The committee plans to approve it at our regular meeting in April. We've been working on this almost 2 years, and finally we've come to a conclusion. And we recommend that we have a committee of the whole so that we can explain this to all the members in case they want to have any questions concerning it.
Any questions, anyone?
So we will be publishing committee of the whole. Of course, Mr. Executive, your staff worked intensively and extensively on this issue. So hopefully your staff would be present, or you would be present. It seems to be an issue that everybody wants to weigh in on. So we will have that committee of the whole immediately following the Forest Reserve District meeting, which is the second Thursday in April. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mustis. Moving on to Finance Committee, Mr. Custa, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ed.
Because this is such an important holiday, I shortened my report to only 2 resolutions, so I'm going to move through this quick because I know we all have places to go.
No speeding now. No speeding.
And also remember, the sheriff has extra money in his budget to enforce any type of traffic matters on today's holiday. So get a driver. All right, here we go. I have 3 reports to place on file. The first one is the Illinois Department of Revenue showing sales tax remitted to Will County for the month of January 2011 to be $1.5 million roughly, and the RTA tax received was roughly $1.8 million. The second report is the monthly county treasurer report dated February 28, 2011. And the third and final report is the quarterly treasurer report dated December 1, 2010 through February 28, 2011, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
I have Resolution 11-91. This is a resolution transferring and increasing appropriations in various county budgets to fund year-end shortfalls, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Finally, I have Resolution 11-92. This is a resolution creating a new special electronic citation fund for the Circuit Court Clerk, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Rozak, second by Ms. Trail. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Happy Paddy's Day, everybody.
Very fine report, Mr. Custa. Next, we move on to Public Works Transportation Committee. Mr. Bellata.
Good morning, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's
morning,
Day.
Jim.
It's a beautiful day. Everybody's Irish today. Just for one day. You'll be that honored. Correct, Mr. Walsh?
Good to be Irish every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, moving into resolutions. We have 11-93. This is confirming order contract of deconstruction for work on Cedar Road and Smith Road, as also at Cedar Road and Butternut Ridge Drive. And I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Seiler. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary motion is carried.
11-94, this is a confirming order contract to K5 Construction. This is for an overlay on Plainfield Naperville Road, south of 95th Street to 87th Street, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Argadelis. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. May, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
11-95, confirming order contract to PT Fero Construction. This is overlay on Manhattan Arsenal Road from Route 53 to Brandon Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
11-96 is award of contract to Iroquois Paving. This is an overlay contract for Old Money Road from Stunkel to the county line, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Argadelis. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Deutsch. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
1197 is confirming order contract to deconstruction. This is for building demolition on DeSelm Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. May, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
Next, 1198. This is confirming order contract to deconstruction for demolition on Archer Avenue, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Seiler. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
1199. This is approval of professional services agreement for environmental studies with Huff and Huff for the intersection of Weber and Renwick Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Brooks. Previous roll call by Ms. Konecki, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
Next, 11-100 is a Jackson Township project, and this is for the county match for professional service agreement with Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick for replacement of the Ridge Road bridge over Manhattan Creek, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. May, second by Mr. Adamick. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried.
11-101, this is approval professional services agreement for right-of-way acquisition appraisals with T Engineering, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Custer, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, approval of professional services for review appraisals with Civil Tech Engineering, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. Trail. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
11-103, this is a professional services agreement for right-of-way negotiations with Swanson and Brown, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Seiler. Questions, anyone? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, 11-104, this is a professional services agreement for right-of-way appraisals with Civil Tech Engineering, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Argadelis. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. McPhillips, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, 11-105, authorizing approval of professional services for right-of-way negotiations with Santa Cruz Associates Limited, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Argadelis. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
11-106 is approval of agreement with County Will and Towpath Joint Venture. This is to purchase the wetland banking site credits for the Pauline Goodnow Road project, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Deutsch. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Mr. Babbage. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
11107, this is approval and agreement between the County Will and Nicor Gas for reimbursement for relocating facilities along Manhattan Money Road at the intersection of 88th Avenue, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Ailes, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
11-108, this is approval of an agreement between Will County and BP Pipelines for reimbursement for relocating facilities, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Question, Mr. Weigel.
Didn't that have to be amended, Jim?
No, it's the next one.
Pardon?
The next one.
Next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Any other questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Howard, second by Mr. Bozak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
11-109, we do have to make a floor amendment on this, but we'll at least open up and get it on the floor. This is for approval of an agreement between the County Will and Wolverine Pipeline, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. May. Mr. Bellotta.
Now, the proposed amendment changes are, first of all, the price that we would have to pay Wolverine Pipeline to relocate their facilities is up to $371,600 on the first page. Everybody should have a copy of this on your desk. And then in the third page, actually the second page of the actual agreement, the third page on your packet, you'll see number 9. It says, it's stricken in your packet that says the venue for this agreement shall be in the courts of the 12th Judicial Circuit, Will County, Illinois. Obviously, if something does ever happen and there's a disagreement, we do have to go to court. We don't want this thing on a national company like this being settled in Michigan or somewhere else. We want it here. Obviously, the cost to fight this, if it's out of state, could be tremendous to the taxpayer. So we do not agree with that should be stricken. So my amendment would be to unstrike that and to have that included into this agreement, and then it'll be presented to Wolverine Pipeline. So those two changes, and I would make a motion for those amendments.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Mayor. Everybody understand the amendments? County got a clerk, got a copy. Any questions? Motion, previous roll call, Ms. Konecki, second by Ms. Seiler. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, the amendment has been adopted.
Okay, so then 11-109, I make a motion to approve as amended.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Custer, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Thank you. Okay, next 11-110. This is to give the Will County Executive the ability to execute an agreement between the County Will and the City of Crest Hill for a standard blanket right-of-way agreement. And I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Mr. Babbage. Any questions? Previous call by Mr. Adamick, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, 11-111. This is authorizing an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Homer Glen and Will County for the construction at 143rd and Lamont Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, seconded by Ms. Seiler. Previous roll call by Ms. Konecki, seconded by Ms. Bozak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, 11-112. This is granting a temporary access permit for natural gas pipeline of Shanahan-Manuka Road. I'm sorry, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Just a couple little comments. We applied for 2 projects with the Will County Governmental League for STP funds, which is the Surface Transportation Program, in hopes of getting one. We were kind of lobbying them for it. We actually got them both in the amount of $2 million. So we have $4 million of grants last month. So I want to thank Governmental League and for allowing us access to that grant and approving us for that. And then also the signals at Laraway and Wolf will be activated on March 23rd, 9 a.m. Mr. Singer, that should make you very, very happy. And that's it. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bellotta. Ms. Smith.
I'd like to wish our own little leprechaun happy birthday today, Jimmy Bellata. Happy birthday.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. They don't mean a whole lot as you get older, do they? So.
Are you going to lead us in singing, Lori?
No.
Thank you. We move on to the Judicial Committee. Ms. Drayle, chairperson.
Little leprechaun. I have no resolutions to present today. However, on your desk, you do have a flyer from the Will County Children's Advocacy Center. I am one of the board members. Through Jim's office, Mr. Glasgow with the state's attorney, this is an excellent event that will take place on March 26th. They are having a Men Who Cook event. If you haven't taken the time, please attend. I did go last year for the first time. Mr. Ken Gray makes a mean biscuits and gravy, and the sheriff waits at the end handing Tums out to everybody. Couldn't understand why. After going through the line, I understand now. It's a number of men. They're lined up all around the room. You take tiny bits of samples of food, and it really is a truly great event. It's in support of the Child Advocacy Center. Please do take the time to go. You won't be disappointed. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Drayle. Moving on to the Public Health and Safety Committee, Mr. Gould, Chairman.
Good morning again, everyone.
Good morning, Don.
I have only one resolution this morning, which is 11-113, a resolution renewing a contract for pharmaceutical services at Sunny Hill Nursing Home, and I move for its approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Stewart. Is there any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Trenier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Don. Now, on to the Legislative and Policy Committee. Ms. Goodson, chairperson.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Leanne.
I have 5 resolutions today. I would like to begin by just explaining Resolution 11-1114. This is a resolution supporting the concepts of House Bill number 9. It amends the property tax code and allows for the publishing of our tax notices online. And at this point, the bill is still in the Revenue and Finance Committee, but we would like to make sure that our General Assembly understands what our position is on this bill. So I would like to make a motion to support 11-1114.
Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Trenier, second by Ms. Seiler. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
My next resolution is House Bill 1293. This is a bill that we've been watching very closely. This involves the foreclosure sales that our Sheriff Department currently conducts. We were able to successfully kill this bill last session. It resurfaced as expected and unfortunately did pass out of committee yesterday. The bill is opposed by Will County, the Sheriff's Association, DuPage County, Metro Counties, the Illinois Association of County Board Members and Commissioners, and unfortunately seems to have some support in Springfield. And so strategy-wise, we would love to be able to kill this bill in the House. Unfortunately, I understand that this bill may in fact be amended by some language that the Speaker, Madigan, would like to see moved, and so the likelihood that we'll be able to stop it if in fact it is amended in the House is going to be very difficult at best. So we want to make sure that we pick up the phone, call your Will County legislator, make sure that they understand where Will County is. All too many times I've heard from people, nobody said Will County was opposed. And whether that's selective memory or not, I don't know, but it's important that we have those relationships, that we can pick up the phone, and this means a lot to Will County. It means a lot to the quality of life for our residents, and it means a lot to the sheriff's budget and unfortunately jobs. If we lose the funding that we receive from conducting these foreclosures, we could possibly lose some of our positions at the sheriff department. And so this is really important. Take the time, pick up your phone, and call your legislator. We will have a contingency in Springfield in early April, if in fact that's still a live bill and not something going to the governor. We can take the opportunity to talk to them as well. But at this point, I would like to make a motion that we support opposing House Bill 1293. And we may have to amend this for some minor language, but let's get it on the floor first.
All right. Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. Drell. Go ahead.
And on your desk, there is some minor language changes, just taking out as and replacing it with if, and then imposing the word would provide rather than provide that. And we can call it a Scribner's error. But I make a motion that we support the bill, or the 11-115 as amended.
No, you're moving to approve the amendments first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, move to approve the amendments.
Move to approve the amendment.
Yep. Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. Drell. Everybody understand the amendments? Everybody see the amendments? Previous roll call to approve the amendments, Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Mr. Babbage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Thank you. Now I would like to make a motion to support 11-1115 as amended.
As amended. Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Deutsch, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, I would like to make a motion supporting Resolution 11-116. This is a resolution supporting the concepts of House Bill 2101. This gives the county the ability to deposit, the county treasurer the ability to deposit funds into credit unions. And just last week, our treasurer went down to Springfield and testified on behalf of this legislation, and we're happy to support it for him. I so move.
Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. McPhillips. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Adamick, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
My next resolution is Resolution 11-117. This is a resolution that supports the concepts of House Bill 2845. This is telecommunications and tower zoning, and basically this places a stricter zoning ordinance. If the property adjacent to where the tower is being constructed is stricter zoning, then the property that the tower is being constructed must adhere to the stricter zoning of that adjacent property. Currently, this is supposed to be receiving a hearing today at 8 o'clock. I'm not sure where that is, but it is in the Counties and Townships Committee at this point and was scheduled for a hearing this morning. But I make a motion that we support the concepts of House Bill 2845, Resolution number 11-117.
Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. Hart. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Seiler, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
And finally, our last resolution is supporting the concept of House Bill 2974. This is also a cell tower legislation bill sponsored by Representative Renee Kozel. And this actually provides for notice to the adjoining properties when a building permit for the telecommunications tower is going to be erected. And it also provides for other things regarding advertising and the notice that goes out. So I'd make a motion that we support the concepts of House Bill 2974, that's Resolution 11-118.
Moved by Ms. Goodson, second by Mr. Rail. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
I'd just like to note that that piece of legislation has in fact passed the committee and is on second reading on the floor. I just wanted to mention there's a blue sheet on your desk today. At a legislative committee, members were curious as to where our federal representatives were on some legislation that basically cut some of the funding for the various programs that the federal government funds. And so that information is on your desk. And then I just wanted to mention a couple of bills that basically are just being introduced. One on behalf of our Sheriff Department. House Bill 2555 is providing for the Sheriff Department to charge an administrative towing fee. And a second bill that will be actually introduced today that will expand the use of the tax automation fund in our Treasurer's Department to allow the Treasurer to use the funds to update and automate any function of the Treasurer's office and not just the tax sales. I also wanted to note, and probably everybody's aware, but yesterday Senator Cullerton did request a repeal of the video gaming and proposed that an additional tax be placed on cigarettes, an additional $1 tax on cigarettes. And although that won't completely replace the funds from the video gaming, it certainly will provide a significant income. And so I guess we'll see where that goes. But a lot of municipalities and counties took positions either in favor or opposing this legislation. And Senator Cullerton basically had a change of heart, and now he no longer supports video gaming. And one other thing, unless anybody has any questions, I'm taking a small liberty since I am of Irish descent, and I heard this on the radio on the way over here. It's a short Irish prayer for you. May those that love us, and those who don't, may God turn their heart. If he can't turn their heart, may he turn their ankles, so that they will limp and we will know them. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have a number on the bill for the sheriffs?
Not as of yet. It's just being assigned today to a shell bill.
Thank you.
I will let you know as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Leanne. Okay, moving on to our next committee, Capital Improvements Committee. Mr. Mayor, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Executive, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Lee, you make it hard to follow that. But Jason, that's going to be up to you. We have today, White & Company is going to give us a overview of some of the things that they have been doing and the groups that they've been talking with in our comprehensive strategic plan. This is a very short overview, and Jason has assured me that we can keep it under 1 hour, well under 1 hour. But we will want to look at having a committee of the whole get a full-blown, in-depth presentation that could take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours with everything that's going on here. So with that, I'm going to let Jason go forward, and then I'll have some comments afterwards. Jason?
Good morning, Jason.
Thank you. Good morning. I guess I'll take my cue there that I got to keep this short and sweet. We have had many project planning, and leadership meetings that have gone upwards of 3 hours, so I'll do my best to keep it short. I'm going to focus really on just the real high-level planning things today in the interest of time. As many of you know, we previously completed the facility space needs, which includes staffing and space projections for all different departments within the county. And now we've been working on the process of trying to translate that into a master plan organizing the facilities. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview of where we're at on it right now. A couple of the guiding principles that we're looking at in terms of organizing these facilities is really a focus on how the facilities can relate to public visibility and ease of use. It's important that people can find the facilities easily and get best service from the county operations. Another piece is looking at it from an organizational philosophy in terms of efficient operations within the different departments and synergies between the departments. Trying to figure out the best possible use for the existing assets that the county has currently, both building and land assets. And then the other piece is really looking at geographic location and proximity to service areas. So as those come together, we're using those as a way to guide the master planning process. I'm going to start out with a graphic here that what this graphic is we did a lot of population projections and doing the space needs, and what you see here is a map of the county with different sized dots that indicate continued expansion and population growth in various parts of the county. And the telling part here is that we know that there's a big bulk of population in the Joliet area, the northern part of the county, and the dots show that there's going to be continued increase in the northern part of the county as well as in the eastern part of the county. And as we started to look at that, one of the thoughts we had was really to focus on a philosophy of having kind of a core of central services in the central part of the county in Joliet here like you have now, but also to expand on the concept of bringing county services to constituents and the public where they reside. So we're proposing a concept of having these satellite service campuses in the northern and eastern parts of the county. I'll call them small, multifunction, service-oriented campuses that have a variety of different functions to bring those services to the public. Now, the next step, we've really kind of divided up all the facilities into three major categories. The first one being core facilities. That would be your county government functions, which the bulk of them reside in this building right now. The justice functions, obviously the adult detention function. So those are some of the primary operations of the county and identified as core facilities. The next grouping is what I'll call service-oriented facilities. So we've got a lot of different operations in the county here that are very specific to an operation and a lot of times need to be located strategically based on geographic location or service area. And then finally, as I just talked about, these ideas of having these satellite campuses where you take some of the major components for public service, components within county government like the assessor's office or recorder or the clerk's office, and having the ability to, instead of everybody having to come to the downtown Joliet area to take care of some of those functions, have a satellite operation where people can go a little closer to home to get some of those government services. Also, the idea of taking some of the court functions as well and placing them at strategic satellite locations to make it a little bit easier for people to take care of court business without everybody having to come to one central location. So the idea there is to really focus on kind of a campus concept so that as the public starts to identify with these, they know that they can go to a location in the northern part of the county and they can take care of a variety of different functions. They don't have to go to 4 or 5 different buildings. It's very easy for people to find their way and to get to where they need to and take care of their business. So I'm just going to run through the different categories real quickly here. When we talk about core facilities, right now you've got a core grouping of facilities in the downtown area with the county government campus right here, the county office building, but you have some diversified or split off functions that are in the executive center right now. The concept is really to try to take all of those core functions and get them into one centralized location so that people don't end up coming to this building only to be told that they have to go to another building. It's just a little bit easier for the public to take care of their business with the county. Same is true when we talk about the justice area. You've sort of got a justice precinct here at the southern part of downtown Joliet, and the idea is to continue to look at opportunities to consolidate those functions and make them easier for people to work together. A lot of that comes down to operational efficiency too. Rather than state's attorneys being in the 121 North Chicago building, we can consolidate functions and try to get a little bit better efficiency in terms of those operations. I'm not going to read through the whole list here, but the idea is that the ones in blue basically are in the county office building now. Ones that are in red would try to be consolidated into a central building, so that kind of goes along with the idea of consolidating core functions. But I do want to highlight that as we talked, having the idea of taking some of these specific functions and getting them out at satellite locations is a better way to serve the public. Same concept is true in the judicial side of the operation. There's a whole bunch of different groups that make up the judiciary. We've been spending time talking with all these different groups and really trying to better understand how they can work together, how they can be as efficient as possible in running those operations. But you've already got a satellite operation with River Valley, which is very focused on the judicial or the juvenile side of the operation. But we're looking at trying to enhance the satellite operations for the courts as well. There's already a roving court operation where traffic court is held at periodic times throughout the county, but we're looking at making that a little bit more of a permanent operation so that it's clearer and it's not fluctuating quite as much. So then we talk about operation-specific facilities. When we talk about this, it's kind of an idea of having what I'll call mini campuses that are specific to an operation, and the county already has a step forward in this direction. If you look at the yellow circle here, I'll refer to that as sort of the county's health campus. Over on LI Avenue, you've got the health department, Sunny Hill Nursing Home, the community health center. So I think what we want to do is to try to build on that concept, and as we talk about the needs of those operations, look at opportunities to kind of build on the concept so that you have sites that are identifiable to the public as specific to a function or operation. Similarly, down here at the a little bit farther southeast with the Laraway Road facility. A lot of information here. I just wanted to show a graphic. I think most know that you've got the highway department, the sheriff's facility out there, but the idea again is to look at this Laraway Road campus as sort of a supportive or operational type campus. Highway department is the main base of operations there, and we're going to look at other functions that might coexist peacefully there that are similar types of uses. Some components of sheriff's office likely could stay there for the long term, and some other functions that are all kind of similar in their nature and operation. And then kind of going through the other groups, sheriff is another function. One of the concepts behind the sheriff is, again, looking at a consolidation. The sheriff has several different components of their operation that are in different facilities right now, and to enhance the efficiency of that operation, we're looking at an opportunity there to consolidate sheriff's functions, but also still have some functions that are dispersed, like there's groups that are tied directly to the court system, which will remain in the courthouse with court security and civil process and that, and to maintain strategic satellite locations or substations as appropriate. Highway department's another good example of that, and this is one where we look at it really more from a regional perspective and a service area perspective. The highway department has several different locations right now that are situated throughout the county to provide service in the areas that they're working in. And one of the thoughts here is to continue to expand on a southern parcel down in the Wilmington area to continue to provide good geographic service throughout the county. So I'll kind of end on the planning side where I started with a focus on the satellite concepts. We've had a lot of discussion about trying to integrate a variety of different uses into a satellite campus, and I think the important thing to talk about here is really the concept of a campus. We don't want to go to a trend of having a whole variety of different buildings spread throughout the county that are in different regions, because it's difficult for people to find their way. I think a lot of people that interact with the county aren't always certain as to what department they need to work with to begin with. So if they have to go to a number of different buildings to take care of their services with the county, it becomes difficult and time consuming. So to the extent that we can organize these into mini campuses, I think that's a real benefit to the constituents of the county. So we're continuing to work forward on the planning process. We have a lot more detail behind a lot of the work that I'm showing today that we've been working through with various committees and planning groups and all the end users as well. But really what we're looking to do now is to continue to refine those buildings and those planning concepts to come into more manageable groupings and sizes of buildings, and then start to look at conceptual budgeting for that. Part of the master planning and anything is also to begin looking at how do you plan financially for projects too. So during our scope of work right now, we're going to propose, as we look at these buildings and facility plans, conceptual budget ranges, so that the county has a little bit of food for thought in terms of how to plan financially for any future investments that might need to be made in the facility side for the county. And then it's about setting some priorities. Final piece of the master plan that we'd like to be working on with the board and other elected officials is really looking at how do we set the priorities, what are the projects that need to be moved forward more quickly or over a different time span. Then I just kind of put this in here as a kind of thinking for the future. Once you have a master plan that everybody's in agreement on, then you need to start looking at how do you implement that plan. And, we're looking at the high level in terms of all facilities right now as part of the master planning. But then as you've prioritized projects, you can start to run those on parallel tracks and look at it on a project-by-project level. And I always like to look at projects as kind of a three-phase plan where you do more specific project planning, which would take the form of detailed programming or some concept designs for those. Things like land acquisition may come into play in some of these strategies where you need to start planning ahead in terms of how to acquire the proper property to put these facilities on. And certainly the financial planning, trying to continue to move forward in terms of opportunities of how to pay for these expansions. And then once you've kind of gotten through that planning phase, you can move into a more detailed design phase and then ultimately into the construction of those facilities. So that's kind of where we're at and where we're heading with the process right now. And I think as Mr. Mayor said, I don't know, did I meet my 10-minute time frame? Okay, good. That's all I have for today.
Before Jason goes away, and I'm going to let people have an opportunity to ask any questions they want, a couple things that I want to address here. This is a huge puzzle. When you talk about all the county services and everything that's going on, we have a puzzle that is over 800 square miles. And those 800 square miles takes in a lot of pieces. As you saw all the lists that Jason was showing you, he has had an opportunity to talk with a number, well, actually all of our leaders in every one of those groups. And it's impossible for us as a county board. I mean, we started this whole process a couple of years ago because people were asking us to make decisions on things that we could have made a decision on, but how would that have affected the next decision we made? And until we have all these pieces and parts laid out, it really does become a tough ability to put together that vision and set the policies that we need to set in order to allocate those budgets. And if you don't remember where those words came from, they came from our workshop when we developed our mission and vision statement. And it's this kind of process that's going to, I think, help take us to the next century with everything, with the decisions that we're going to make today. And as Jason talked about, the planning and the design and then eventually the buildings, we can't take a look at setting a vision by any one piece. Every piece has got to be as equally important in this process as any other piece. And which is one of the reasons the campus idea is playing, I think, so well with our committee. And I hope that it will play well with the board in general as we start taking a look at these visions. Because when you start taking a look at the campuses, we can take a look at providing services for everybody, including the courts, where we've all seen the lines coming out of the courtrooms and out of the court building. But if we had a really nice campus, and the judge, Kenny, was extremely helpful in being able to provide us the data that shows the number of folks that they serve in the northern county. If we had a campus up there, that would relieve a huge number of problems that we have here in the city of Joliet, by just being able to keep people from having to travel down here because of the location of a facility like this. And so as we take a look at this planning, I mean, some of us would like to get a courthouse built tomorrow. Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, if we started today, it's going to take us 6 years or more to build a courthouse. Where I think with some of these campus ideas and some of the other things that we have going on, we're going to be able to address the issues and the problems that we have going on here. And as you see with the planning and design, that budgetary thing that Jason's putting together, I think, becomes an extremely important aspect of this, taking a look at this decision-making process. But it also has to be considered that we have to go in and put a vision together before the budget, so that we at least know where we're headed, and then we'll know how we're going to get there. And the budget dollars that Jason's going to lay out here for us over the next few months is going to help in that process. Folks, this, like Jason said, we've taken up to 3 or 4 hours to talk about this. We'd like to have a meeting of the Committee of the Whole to allow everybody to get into the detail, minutia of the kind of discussions that we want to be able to have here. This probably is not the best time to do it, or we will be over that hour threshold. So I'd like to be able to open it up for any general questions, Mr. Executive.
Thank you, Chuck. I do want to welcome our Chief Judge, Jerry Kinney, here today. Judge, to Would you like to make any comment at all at this time, Judge?
I really didn't prepare any. Just thanks for all the time we spent. I know there's other needs, and I know you're working on mine, so I appreciate it very much. I'll be available to add my input at the appropriate time. Thanks.
Thank you, Judge. Okay, Mr. Argadelis.
Yes, just in Plainfield Township, we currently, Ms. Voots has started to provide some services through our township building. We have a fairly modern and large building. Is there consideration on the committee being given to the utilization of existing government buildings and maybe the expansion as a budget issue where we could save, because there are some buildings that are in existence that with you could create a campus based on something that's already there rather than having to start from scratch, and that would be something that might be helpful budgetary-wise. You know.
At this point, there's nothing off the table. I mean, I think that's always been one of our goals, is to cross-pollinate, so to speak, that the taxpayers, even though we as different taxing bodies hit them up in all the individual points, they're just one group. So whatever we can do to help facilitate that. I'm not going to go, today is not going to be a day that we're going to sit here and talk about individual groups.
I just wanted to say that because, for example, Ms. Voots' office has started a program where they provide services to our township buildings.
She's in several places,
so people
around,
can come
so we're going to continue to take a look at that.
Let's try and keep it to one at a time.
Yeah. So I mean, my thought were just to keep that as you deliberate. You know, perhaps these campuses as part of that. When you get to that budget part, if we can build upon existing buildings to form these campuses, we might be able to get the job accomplished and save some money too.
Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Next question, Mr. Howard.
Just to reaffirm and reiterate what Mr. Argadelis said, that basically there's a feeling going through the country right now, I believe, that what we need to do is consolidate, and maybe we need to take an audit of the existing facilities that are out there, whether they're township, municipalities, whatever, because it's a lot cheaper to put everybody under one roof, you know, pay one electric bill, one heating bill, you know, as you go on, and that might be something to really look at this time, and it just makes sense. It literally just makes sense at this point in time. And as it was stated earlier, that if it takes 6 years from a project from the time of planning to the actual completion of it, look at our county, how much has changed in 10 years. So a project that's going to be planned 4 years from now, again, another 6 years, again, that's another 10 years. That's a whole nother different world that we're going to live in. So at the same time that if these buildings are out there, and I'm sure this discussion is going to happen in the future, is that these buildings almost need to be looked at in a fluid in nature to where they can actually adapt and change as we change in the future. So I compliment you on this. This is a fantastic thing here, what you're actually doing here. So thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Rozak.
Chuck, as we just heard, and Mr. Howard just alluded to also, whether we started today, this isn't going to happen next week,
especially
not even
the
next
larger
June.
buildings that we're talking
Right.
about, like a full-blown
So
courthouse.
in the meantime, I think one of the big issues is our constituents and our residents of Will County that have to wait in line every day at the courthouse. Has the committee talked about any kind of a quicker fix for something like that?
Well, that's what those campus aspects. It wouldn't take that long to put a smaller campus together as it would to build a courthouse in downtown Joliet.
But I'm sure it's not going to happen in a year, though, right? I mean,
you know, Deb, until we go in and start putting that kind of.
I just was wondering if you've talked about that.
I mean, there's been all kinds of discussions about that, but again, it's going to take longer than a year to get almost anything done. Even if we would take and find a spot up in as John had talked about, having a facility up near him, even if we had to go in and rebuild things out and go in and make sure that we were good for security and all those other issues, it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Right. I mean, this was a long winter. I'm glad I didn't have to stand out in that line. I mean, even if it was an awning or some type of an enclosure or some kind of a quick fix, I just was wondering if that had been addressed.
Actually, nothing like that has been discussed. Good idea, though.
Mr. Mustis?
I was just going to say, some of those issues, I think, are continuing operational issues and can be addressed. I don't think the committee's really not addressing those types of issues. But I will point out, and I'm going to use the jail for an example. I could go further back and use the juvenile detention, similar time frames, since I was here for both, and I was involved in the planning in the building of both. It is about, planning to completion is about a 5-year process. Anytime you do even a major building, you're 2-3 years of construction seasons, depending on weather. So it is a long process. The committee is looking far out. I think you're going to see short-term solutions and goals, and you're going to see long-term. As far as cohabitation with other jurisdictions, you both probably have to have the need, and it always becomes a little dicey. Even though we have talked, the committee has talked. Just so you know, the committee has talked about cohabitation or locating with other entities on some campuses. So there has been those discussions. Jason didn't go through it today, but he did present to the committee other areas of opportunity. So where the county may perhaps partner with some other jurisdictions or entities. So just so you know, that discussion is part of this. You're really getting the Reader's Digest version of the Reader's Digest here. Just so you all know that many of the comments, they are addressing those concerns. So.
And again, we would hope to have a meeting of the board as a whole to be able to really go through this stuff in depth so that all these concerns and questions and comments can be taken into consideration, and we can go through and look at prioritizing. Again, this is a vision. This is trying to really take a look at where we want to help establish a process that's going to go on long after we're off the board. So this is just the start of this process.
Miss May?
I just have one comment. As we discussed earlier in the meeting, it's taken 2 years for our land use committee to finally bring to you the digital sign ordinance. That's just a little digital sign ordinance. It takes 2 years. I find that sitting on the board here, I move relatively slow, a lot of thought. I don't know how many years you've discussed needing these extra services, but I think as the board, shouldn't we just make ourselves have some kind of timeline in which we agree that we're going to get to this point, that we're going to start to make some decisions? Otherwise, it's going to just continue going on and on and on, and people are just waiting for help and waiting for things. So don't you think that we actually should come up with some constructive timeline? Because if this was a business wouldn't wait 15 years or 10 years if they have to expand their services. They react to it. So I'm just saying, I know it's going to be difficult because it entails raising money and taxes, but I think we just have to set some deadline and hit it.
Mr. Mayor?
That's exactly what we're talking about here, Sharon. We're talking about setting short, long-term goals, and the amount of volume, and we'll be glad to eventually give you that whole thing that you can read from top to bottom, because any business that is responsible for 800 square miles with over 500,000 or more people that they're serving is not going to make the kind of decisions that we're talking about here rashly. They're going to make sure that they've done their due diligence. We're not taking 2 years to make decisions. We've only been at this for about a year, and just to set up all the appointments and have all the meetings and then come back through all the data that has been collected has been monumental. A lot more than making a decision on a sign.
Mr. Mustis?
Yeah, I think, even in the private sector, I've been involved with the private sector. We're not looking at major capital investment. They don't do it overnight either. I mean, there is a process. But let me just say that once the county has finally committed, and we know we have and one of the things we have to make sure we have in place, of course, is financing. But once the county has made those commitments, they get the financing in place, we move, I think, at a relatively fast pace. But it is a process, and it does take time. I would say for major projects, it's a 5-year. It's a 5-year timeline. That's just what it is. But in the meantime, I'd like to also point out we have always met the needs, the space needs of the county, whether we've gone out in a leased additional property or space, whether we move people around. Nobody should, for example, I'm going to use the courts. Judge Kennedy is still over there. Is that we have added courts over the last 10 years. Correct, Jerry? We moved the state's attorney was displaced, but we put more courtrooms in the current courthouse over the last 10 years. We've added courtrooms at the EMCO building. We've added courtrooms at the juvenile detention. So this board should not feel or think that we are not meeting the current space needs. We moved around the superintendent of schools. Now, if anything, I think it's becoming operationally a little more difficult. But we do continue to meet the space needs in the interim. I just want people to understand that.
If I could just,
Mr. Mayor,
just finish this up, and then I'll move on with my. I'll be finished with my report. This truly is about the ultimate need and where the total build out is going to be. It's not just the short term, as Jim just said. We're meeting the needs as well as possible, but we don't want to go in and make the wrong decision on those short term needs without having a vision of what our long term needs are. So without that, we could be spending money frivolously and it'd be going down a black hole somewhere because we put a building in the wrong spot that we need to then tear down later on, or we rented something that's getting us involved in something that we don't need to be. And I think we've all seen that with the upswing in our economy that we had in the early part of 2000 and even in the late 90s, there was a lot of land and growth and building, and everybody underestimated what we were doing across the board. I think we have learned from that, at least I hope we have, and we're making sure that Jason and White and company make sure that we don't underestimate where this potentially could be as we go forward. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Mr. Mustis?
If I can make one other comment. Here again, I know we're talking about building, we're talking about ownership, but I want you to understand leasing is part of a strategy for overall space needs and can be a very effective, cost-effective part of the strategy. So we're always going to also have leased space because it makes sense and it's economically makes most sense. Excuse me. So we haven't touched on this, but very early on we talked about leasing also being part of a strategy to meet overall space needs. So it's just not all about owning and building. It's an overall strategy for space. And the executive's office, especially on the leasing portion, they usually bring that to us as the board, to the board. But it is part of the overall strategy that the executive's office will also use to meet space needs. I guess I'm just want to make it clear we are meeting space needs currently. So.
Ms. Konecki.
Just one comment in terms of meeting space needs. If we're having problems, a judge can only hear one trial at a time. And if multiple cases have been scheduled for trial on the same day, one will go forward and the others will wait. So that there's that kind of a burden on our citizens if we don't have the facilities we need. I think that's a burden. However, it's not the burden that concerns me. The burden that concerns me the most, and it's been brought up here, and I don't want us to lose sight of it, and Chuck, you keep your eye on it, please. It's that long line that does snake out of our existing Joliet courthouse. It's not only that people freeze and they stand in the rain, it's the fact that it just takes them so long simply to get into the building and get where they need to be at a certain time. They're supposed to be in a courtroom at a certain time, and they show up here and they can wait in 45 minutes trying to get in that building under conditions that are simply unacceptable. So I would hope that your committee will do something in if that one short-term problem, please.
And if anybody has any ideas on that, please let us know. We have not, we would be welcomed and open to any ideas that people would have on helping us in that short-term process as we go through the long-term planning.
Mr. Mustis?
Yeah, because this issue continually comes up, and I understand that the court may disagree with what I'm going to say here, but this is just not a space problem. This is an operational problem and perhaps a little bit of a security problem. When you tell everybody to be there at 8:30 and you don't open the door, till 8:30, you're going to have a line. Now, maybe there's issues with taking people in. Maybe there's issues with opening those doors at 8:15 versus 8:30 or 8 o'clock versus 8:30. Maybe there's some security issues that have to be addressed. But just to address it as a issue of space is absolutely not the case, in my opinion. And I do think we could look at how it operates, and maybe open those doors a little sooner. Maybe, I know this has been thrown out. Maybe you have a 8:30 and a 9:30 call. But the point is you can't tell people to be there at 8:30. People with the impression that they have to be up on the courtroom at 8:30, but you don't open the door. That's...
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
And just one other alternative, too, Kathleen, talking about that, is if we are worrying about the residents of Will County, maybe we hold a night court. It's much more convenient for them to come in the evening after their work. So that could be an alternative also.
Thank you. I would like to recognize City of Joliet City Manager Tom Thanis, who's been sitting here diligently listening to our programs. Tom, thank you for coming by, and personally I would like to thank you for your participation in many of these meetings during the course of these last 12-18 months in regards to the cooperation and the collaboration between county government and city government and what it means to us both. Thank you very much, Tom. No. Oh, yeah. And we do see City Council Member Tim Brophy with us today, right? No. And that isn't Tim.
I think I need my glasses.
Oh, you told me that.
I think I need my glasses. I better put them on.
Sorry. Why didn't you tell? Why didn't you tell her he wasn't here, Tom? And yeah, he's all over. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Now, moving on to next committee, Executive Committee, Mr. Mustis, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive.
Morning,
County
Jim.
Board. My first resolution today is 11-119, a resolution awarding bid for farm lease on county landfill property, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 11-120, a resolution authorizing the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Naperville for household hazardous waste collection facility, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Hart. Any question? Previous roll call by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 11-121, replacement hires for Sunny Hill, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Ailes, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 11-122, replacement hires for GIS, I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
And next, the appointments of the county executive, I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Wilhelmi. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Ms. Seiler. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
And Mr. Executive, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustis. Announcements by the County Board Chairman, Mr. Mustis.
First, I mentioned to everyone here, if you have not done your ethics training, today is the last day to do that. So if you haven't, it'll be immediately following the board meeting. Okay. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. We did mention the Real Men Cook event that the state's attorneys helped sponsoring for child advocacy. Also on the same day, there seems to be a lot of events on the 26th. I don't know why, but there is. I'm going to try to make them all. I'm going to have to probably run between one and the other so I can work off some of those calories. But also the Illinois Extension, 4-H, is having their event also on the 26th at Lincoln Way West. It was a big success last year, big turnout. I know that many county officials and board members did participate. So they're starting an hour earlier than the child advocacy. So start out with the Illinois Extension, work your way down my way, down to, you can come down to my district then and do the Real Men Cook over at the Plumber and Pipe Fitters Hall. And so those are the, pardon? And there's a sign-up sheet. If you're going to go, and you want to be a celebrity host or a public host, whatever they're calling us who might come for Illinois Extension, please sign up if you think you're going to go and spend a few extra minutes there and say hello to some folks that you don't always see. You see a lot more rural folks and so forth. Larry may see those folks more often than most of us, but it gives us an opportunity to see some of those folks that we don't normally see. Spring training, I don't know what to think. I think both teams look like they're moving along. So, but I think the Sox have a real legitimate shot here, Larry. What do you think? I'm not saying the Cubs don't, but they could be a surprise. The Cubs. So, everyone who celebrates St. Patrick's, please celebrate in a safe way, and always have a designated driver. Mr. Executive, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustis. Comments from our legislative majority leader, Mr. Bellotta.
Did you know the original color for St. Patrick was actually blue, and it slowly transitioned into green? That is correct. I did a little Wikipedia research this morning. St. Patrick's Day is a holy day of obligation in Ireland in honoring of their patron saint, St. Patrick. St. Patrick actually died on today. That's why it became St. Patrick's Day. He was born in Roman Britain in the 4th century. He was kidnapped by 8 Irish raiders and turned into a slave. He escaped and returned to Ireland in 432. Became a bishop because his family were all deacons, and he championed the Irish Christianity move. The reason the Shamrock came into being this, representative of Irish history is because he used the Shamrock to explain the Holy Trinity to the pre-Christian Irish people. So it came through. So interesting fact. The first parade in the United States was in 1762, and it's been ongoing since then. And it's in New York, and it's now today the largest parade. Chicago started theirs in 1843, so that's pretty long too. So different towns do different things. A lot of towns will paint their city streets green, or even the stripes, the traffic stripes, are where the parade's going to go. I think it's Savannah, Georgia. They take their downtown fountains and dye them all green, and obviously Chicago, along with even Indianapolis, they have a canal that they dye green. So every town seems to have a little thing that they can separate themselves to honor St. Patrick's Day. So St. Patrick's Day also is probably the busiest days for bars and restaurants. And in fact, in Ireland, there was a period where, because people drank so much heavily, there was a law that said all bars and restaurants had to be closed on St. Patrick's Day. So obviously that was reversed in 1970. That didn't last very long, and now it is one of the biggest alcohol consumption days of the year. So with that, definitely be careful, be safe, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellotta. Not only your birthday, but a heck of a history lesson.
Absolutely. There's a test, absolutely.
Moving on is the Minority Leader, Mr. Adamick.
Thank you, Mr. Executive, and good morning to all here. It was with heavy heart that I announced that the brother of Herb Brooks, his brother, has passed on, and I know our prayers are with his family, and we're sorry about your loss. Mr. Moostis pretty much saw everything I was going to talk about with regards to cooperative extension on the 26th from 4 to 8 p.m. and also for the Will County Children's Advocacy Center. Seeing as he pretty much covered it, I'm not going to belabor it. I wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day as well. Enjoy the beautiful day that we have here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Adamick. So, seeing no more further business, we will stand at recess until Thursday, April 21st, 2011 at 9:30.